treatment, then no one should be able to get the treatment. And it's something that I'm just
Gotcha.
very personally opposed to. So.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Well, I want to make sure, let me just make sure I gotten through all of that. Okay. We'll come back here. This will be my big tech challenge. I'm going to try to share something with you. Well, let me give you a little setup. So it's going to be some detail about Johnson & Johnson, well, specifically Janssen, Johnson & Johnson pharmaceutical arm. So it's going to be about them in things that the efforts that they're doing in this space. There's three of them, I think. I just, give you a minute to read it. Let me make sure I can get it up so you can read it first of all. Okay, tell me what you see. Do you see a PowerPoint now?
Yes.
Okay, let me make it bigger and hopefully it doesn't go away. Can you read that? Is that big enough you can read it?
Yeah.
Okay, and I won't read over top of you. Just go ahead and take a second and go through that and just let me know when you're done.
Yeah, so I'm an ethnic minority. I have some issues with this.
All right, tell me what, that's what I'm here to find out. Tell me what your reaction is to this.
So so whenever people start talking about diverse and inclusive workplaces, I get a little bit concerned about, what is that virtue signaling, or is that quotas? I mean, what exactly does that mean? And so, yeah, I mean, when I go, if I'm going to have brain surgery, I don't care what race the person is. I want them to be the best at what they do. And that's something that really is important to me. So when people talk about racism in healthcare, I get very uncomfortable with that because racism for me is a very charged word, and there might be insensitivity, and to me it's very different than actual racism. I think that a lot of people are very insensitive, and I'm certainly guilty of it, right? But I think racism is something very, very different. And I think that whenever we look at a disparity and attribute it to racism, it's very, it's not only, I think, mistargeted, but it's also dangerous in that, I'm of Mexican descent, and I would be very uncomfortable thinking that someone would not tell an aunt who's obese that she needs to exercise and cut out fatty foods because of, fearing that they would be labeled a racist, or what I mean? I'm just, right. I really, I have a lot of, and
let me ask, is it the use of in the last bullet point, racism, if they just talked about sort of, racial disparities in care access, I mean, does that not push it too far for you? Or I'm just curious, what, is it the specific language or sort of the ideas or both that they're talking about?
It's probably both. I mean, so there's a lot in here.
Yeah.
That echoes that. And so,
so it's sort of it's sort of, you're getting a kind of a cohesive,
it's
picture out of all of it.
Yeah, it's in every bullet. It's
okay. Well, what do you think is the main idea of this? If you were explaining it to, a colleague in your own words, and you said, Janssen is doing this, how would you describe this?
I think it's well-intentioned, of course, but I would tell someone, I'm very concerned that this is any combination of a lot of virtue signaling and or misdiagnosing some of what's going on here.
So tell me about that. What do they misdiagnose? I mean, tell me those. I want to explore that a little.
So when we talk about racial and social health, I think it's racial and social health. What we there, a lot of the academic research and literature is it's I would call it, like more of the social science, more of the correlation, not causation type research.
Okay.
And, we, if you've got disparities in health outcomes and you fail, so this idea that it's doctors that are being racist and not and doing for example doing more C-sections for the Medicaid population.
Mm-hmm.
That's very serious, right? I mean, we need to know a lot about it. But when you take a look at the academic literature, there's not a causation established here. And so to just say, oh, the doctors are racist, the nurses are, I think it's not, they might be, and that's important to find out. But I think that is not established. When we take a look, at like diabetes, for example, same thing. I do think that it's important to have a lot of education and coaching available.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that does positively impact, but that doesn't mean that the doctors are racist. I mean, I just, a lot of that is, once again, goes back to what the value add in health insurance is. And so, I think these are really complex issues that, there's a payoff for companies to come out and say, oh, we're going to do all these things. And it's,
right. Well, you said a couple of times virtue signal. I mean, does this feel like, I mean, do you think there's depth to this, or do you think that's what, like you said, the benefit to companies coming out and talking about this? Is it more that or subsidy? You know what I mean? I guess, what's your take on that? I mean, on that spectrum with this?
So I think to me, a lot of this looks and feels like virtue signaling. It doesn't mean it all is, because there are disparities. I mean, they exist, right. And they do exist. And I do think that the problems of understanding these issues, I mean, it's important to invest in understanding why, but yeah, I think yeah, it's
okay. So it's sort of, I mean, I think I'm getting what you, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I mean, I think it's coming through. And just to circle back to, like, I want to make sure we talked a lot about it, but just to sort of sum up, this leans very heavily on race in terms of access and inequities or disparities kind of thing. And in your opinion, it's probably too far in that direction.
Oh, no, yeah. And so, a lot of, there absolutely disparities exist, but I think that, when you drill down into other socioeconomic factors, those disparities look a lot different.
Right. Okay. So sort of the like their premise is a little bit maybe off in the whole, this is addressing a problem that maybe isn't the core problem, or like you said, it's sort of missing the mark a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to make sure. So the other ones are a little bit shorter. Hopefully this goes through. Yeah, this one's much shorter. Go ahead and just take a second. And again, these are all, kind of related issues. Again, these are all things that from Jansen's, initiative that are sort of describing what they're doing. So just take a second on this one.
So on this one, once again, I mean, I believe that you do need diversity. I'm a firm believer in that. But once again, this concerns me a little bit because I don't think that someone who has who's given their career to work in hospice, for example, is necessarily going to deliver a lower quality if they're not the same race as the patient they're caring for. I mean, I have a lot of problems with the way that this is framed, and because I mean, obviously you want the workforce to reflect a community, but on the other hand, how are you getting there?
Okay, so that's what you mentioned, going back
Yeah.
to the social engineering part of
Yeah.
it. So the theory behind this is okay to you, but the way when you read these words, you think it might, something else might be going on, like it's hinting at some things that you make you a little uneasy.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay, and we'll come back to if there's anything. And let's do the next one. So take a second on this one, and then, like I said, we'll circle back on all of them. But same question. Just interested in what your gut reaction is to this.
This is much better. This
Okay.
message. Yes. I mean, and I think, yeah, I mean, and even if I nitpicked a couple things, this would not bother me.
Okay. Tell me why you said this one's better than the other. What about it jumped out at you as positive?
Because like cultural competence, it's absolutely important. But it's not, I mean, I'm of a Hispanic background, but there are people who are more culturally competent than I am. I mean, it's just
Right.
so I like this a lot more. And the real goal is to close a racial mortality gap by delivering better healthcare. And I mean, that's something that I think, is really important, and focuses on access. And I think this, I mean, I don't have any problems with this message. I think this one really is, I think these are absolutely laudable goals. And yeah.
And are they, when you read something like this, coming from Janssen, or I guess any company, or from Janssen, I mean, is this credible coming from a pharmaceutical company? Like, I mean, do you take them at their word that that they're doing this, or would you need more information? Like, does this raise any questions for you?
No. Well, so, and part of the reason it doesn't raise questions is because I think that it's a very it's a more authentic message, in terms of it. And so, people that I know that work in the pharmaceutical companies, I mean, I don't question their motives at all, in terms of those individuals. I think that they are trying to do good work and trying to help people.
Okay.
And so, yeah, no, this message is, I think, far more authentic and seems to be far more tied into what is actually needed in order to deliver on those goals.
Okay. Whereas the other was talking about the diversity of their workforce, it's a little more removed. While it is important, the connection directly to access and health equity isn't as strong. Like, if they did this one's going to hit the target.
Yeah, it's the so that, right? The so that is missing from the other messages. This has the so that.
Okay.
In it.
All right, let's do, I think we just have one more. I apologize, one's a tiny bit longer, but let's do the same exercise on this.
So this has a whole lot of jargon in it. I don't disagree with any of it, but it's full of jargon. And I don't think that most people would understand what, a research platform has to do with it,
Okay.
And so,
and I should have said, this, I don't know if this is meant to be sort of consumer facing language, or probably, I mean, my guess is it's probably more individuals at your level and line of work, the space that you're in. But that is a good point. I mean, that it is, if it's too jargony, it's not coming across.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess, I mean, yeah, I understand what they're saying, but most people probably wouldn't, and I think a lot of policy people, in fact, wouldn't really know how this is done in the real world. So
and can you give me some like phrases that jump out that are so jargony, high level, that you really don't understand sort of like what's underneath that? Like, are there obvious ones in here?
Yeah, like transformational scientific solutions.
Okay. Like, what the heck is that? I mean, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it could mean a whole lot of different things. I know how some of it is. I mean, I know like specifically in how you could do that, and it would work. But yeah, it's very jargony.
Okay.
And like to partner with and invest in racially and ethnically diverse institutions and associations that will help drive innovative solutions and address gaps in disease treatment. I mean, really, I mean, what I assume they're talking about is investing in programs that train up racial and ethnic minorities in the healthcare workforce. I assume is what they
Okay.
mean. And you know, and so why not just say that?
Right. Okay. So this one's kind of high. Well, I just want to circle back because I think the intent, again, I didn't, writing these is that, while we had one, this was kind of the big picture description of their initiative. And we talked about this one's got some issues, while in theory, I think we talked about this one in pretty in depth, and then, this one's really focused sort of their internal workforce effort that they're doing to kind of, like you said, make, things mirror the population. This one's, the one you think is most to the point where they actually talk about the people they're serving. And then I think this one is a little bit more about their partnership and the different things they're doing with different groups. I think I know the answer to this, but of the ones we looked at, this is the one I think, is this the one that resonates most with you and you think is most important? If they're going to talk about something, they should emphasize this?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Is there anything that you think is missing when you read this? Like, does it, again, raise questions, or do you want to know, okay, how are you doing that? If you were having a conversation with someone at Janssen and you saw this, what would your follow-up to them be?
I would ask them specifically, well, what are you supporting? Give me some examples. I mean, but it's more, more like just diving into specifics.
Okay. So, I mean, just like you talked about where the transformational thing, you go, okay, tell me what that actually means, kind of thing. Do you think this is, let me make sure again, since this is our first run through, sorry about that. Is this different than, what do you think other pharmaceutical companies are doing? Is this something that, could be, any of them could come out and say it, and, you would think it would be applicable for all of them?
I think for the big ones, are all focusing on this. And I think that you're seeing, I think with the Cures 2.0 legislation that's moving through Congress, this is absolutely a central point of it. And so, okay. Yeah.
Well, is this differentiate? Like, have you heard, if you found out the Janssen, you don't think so? I mean, you think that they're all essentially, this is language that, anyone could use, kind of thing?
I think, I think, insulin manufacturers probably can't use this, but everyone else, if you're big.
All the big, right? Like you said, the ones that have products and are out doing outreach. So it's not really a differentiator, you would think, like you do. I mean, would it change at all? Or, because this is actual, this isn't made up. I mean, this is a real initiative that they're doing. I'm going to throw my phone out the thing. I apologize. I think it's my kids. They have a half day. So does this change your impression of Janssen in any way, knowing that they have this initiative and all of these things, that we talked through are actual?
No, because I think, like I said, I think that everyone is doing, all the big ones are doing this already because they know that they have to do it. And I think that they want to do it also. I mean, but yeah, everyone's moving in this direction. Cures 2.0 is very clear about some of these goals, and I think that they're helping to drive that too. So I think it's not. I don't think that if I read this, I wouldn't think, oh, it's this company. No, I would. Okay, that's the trend.
And it doesn't necessarily change. Like I said, even knowing it's Janssen, it doesn't make you think differently about them versus Pfizer or anybody else.
No, because I think there are a lot of companies are committed to this. So
okay, so it's an area that lots of them are doing.
Yeah,
okay.
and whenever it's absolutely not unique to them.
Okay, so the last thing I want to show you are, I get to it. All right, so these are, let me read it so I don't do it. These are some specific actions Janssen could take as part of their effort to improve health equity. Just scan these and let me know, are there like 2 or 3 that you think are the most important for them to take out of these? 2, the ones which ones do you think would make the most difference?
So, I think 5, 6, 7, and 8 are pretty important. let's see, I think that they already do a lot of these, but I think in terms of where things are headed and what is kind of being signaled as needing the most is 5 and 6.
Okay, tell me why. What is it about those two that are?
So this is not true only with racial disparities. This is true with all doctors, but a doc, just because someone has an MD doesn't mean they're of the same quality and caliber. I mean, that's always,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And so in a lot of cases, you have doctors who are unaware of disease symptoms for X, Y, and Z. It's not because they're bad. It's not because they're bad people. It's that they're just not informed. They can't keep
Right.
up. They don't have all the same access to the
Gotcha.
resources. And so that's, I mean, if you want to help, for example, patients with chronic diabetes, sickle cell, or, things that tend to have a lot of racial or ethnic disparities, that is something that is important to educate physicians on.
Okay.
I mean, just, because they don't have the time and resources to go out and find it themselves. So the more that's funneled to them, the better.
Okay. And tell me real quick about the clinical trials one, the other one.
Yeah. So, well, this is a big part of Cures 2.0, where, this is a big goal. There's a couple of components to it. One is that ethnic and racial minorities tend to not be able to participate in clinical trials because of the cost and expense of going to the clinical trial site, having access to the facility, institution that's running the clinical trial. Not everyone can go to Cedars-Sinai or Sloan Kettering and Mayo. So,
right.
So the ethnic and racial representation in clinical trials is definitely a disparity, and there's probably pretty good reason to think that there are that these clinical trials aren't capturing as much information as they should in order to help these these certain groups of patients.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, that's a really important one. There's a lot being done without legislation in terms of decentralizing the trials. That's actually moving pretty rapidly, with clinical trial platforms being adopted in more remote locations through oncology networks and things, but it's still a big issue. And so I think those are, yeah.
Let me ask you, are these the kind of actions? Let's just do 5 and 6 and say that, this is something that, and again, these are efforts that they're doing, but is this something that you think all pharma companies are doing as well? Or if you knew that Janssen was really putting a lot of resources into 5 and 6, would that make a difference in how you think about them specifically?
So I generally think that everyone's doing this, but if a company came out and said, "Oh, here's what we're doing," I would remember these.
Okay. So that would, I mean, if they got it the right, sort of tone, or I guess it was that second message that were third, I can't remember, but the one that was, that you thought was the most salient, and added a couple of these, like 5 and 6, it sounds like that would be sort of a very informative, the most informative, impactful combination of everything we've looked at for you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because there's actual, I think there's actual impact on health outcomes here.
So let me see if I can stop doing this. That's all I have to show you. Okay, good. We're through everything. Let me just double check since we've got a minute. So what would you say to Janssen? So obviously the study is being sponsored by Janssen. It's an effort to sort of make sure that their communications are clear and salient, and get to the point, uncovering all the issues that you've helped me uncover so far. What would you say to them if they're trying to, the question is, what could they do better in terms of communicating things they're doing to you on health equity? Besides, I guess you already kind of helped me tweak and, things there.
Yeah. So I honestly think talking to middle-aged minority women would be a really good, getting them in here's why, because we've got kids, we've got parents, we're in the middle, and we're not so young that we are, we don't have time for all of the politically driven stuff.
Right.
And we're not old enough to not see all the other
Yeah.
stuff going
Right,
on.
right.
So I think it's kind of like this middle-aged ethnic or racial minority mother is who you want to make sure likes your message.
Okay. That's a great entry point, because they've got kind of a wide sphere of they're impacting a lot of different other groups. And
so like if you're paying health insurance for your kids and are also helping your parents decide what Medicare plan, like
right.
and you're thinking about long-term care for your parents, but you're also trying to figure out how to get your kids vaccinated for the flu and COVID. Like because that's kind of and then also like we're the ones who also have our friends or ourselves or loved ones who are getting diagnosed with cancer at this age. I mean, like all of those things are happening to this particular demographic. And so I think that's kind of where that's going to be the sweet spot of messaging.
Okay. So that's in terms of audience and the kind of the tweaks and things we already discussed in terms of pulling out the more targeted points on there. So, okay. Well, I can stop interrogating you. I've gotten through my questions. Do you have any questions for me before we wrap up?
Well, I guess, is this informing a very specific public campaign?
Again, I don't know if it's going to go to, direct to consumer, or if it'll be, policy folks at your level. In theory, it could be both. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be things that they made that, is available to the public, whether or not it's sort of aimed at them, or maybe they have different versions, but they essentially want to let people know that, what they're doing in this space, and to make sure that they say it as effectively as they can. So, yep. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay, cool. Well, I really appreciate your time. This is valuable to, when we look at it, we're giving them like, I don't know, it reads fine to me, but so that's why we're talking to a lot of people, with different perspectives to kind of get the feedback we've gotten. So, well, enjoy the rest of your day. It was nice meeting you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.